She asked a very good question in the class. She says, when I am reading from the book or any article, how do I differentiate whether it is important for prelims or mains? Very logical question, right? And we all know in prelims the weightage of current affairs is anywhere between 35 to 40%. This is the weightage in for current affairs. The articles that are coming to you daily, no, those beautiful photographs are coming to you, which you are happily putting in an inbox folder and not reading. When you read an article, how do you differentiate whether it is important for prelims or mains? How do you do that, Ram? How do you differentiate that this article is important for prelims, this article is important for mains? How do you differentiate? अच्छा, today I have posted one article. खोलो टेलीग्राम, एक आर्टिकल आया ना सुबह. One article came today in the morning, which is about Aadhaar rules amended. Quickly read. Now tell me, how will you tell whether it is important for prelims or mains? How will you tell whether it is important for prelims or mains? What is the amendment? पढ़ो 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 पढ़ो, पढ़ना सीखो. It's a very old song, no? पढ़ना लिखना सीखो मेहनत करने वालों. What is the updation of Aadhaar Act? वो तो पहले से ही है. Hello, Aadhaar is not mandatory. I hope you are aware. हाँ, Aadhaar is not mandatory. Huh? What is the amendment? What is the amendment is my question. इतना टाइम क्यों लग रहा है? Amendment of only the demographic data has to be amended, not the biometric data needs to be amended. Now, after reading this article, how will I know that it is important for prelims or mains? The moment I see this particular article, what will be my first question? The moment I see this article, what will be my first question to my mind? Important for prelims or mains? This is the question, right? So how do you judge that this is important for prelims or mains? If at all a mains question has to come, how it will come?
New amendments in Aadhaar, how it is changing the.
See, always remember, UPSC, मान लीजिए this is an issue. UPSC will never ask a question on issue. It will always ask a question on the surroundings of that particular issue. Now, we know that Aadhaar is there. Aadhaar is a how many digits? 12 digits unique identification number with an intention to identify a person, right? Now, you know that the Aadhaar data needs to be amended over a period of time as a result of change of demographic details. Biometric details generally do not change, right? Change of demographic details. Now, if can UPSC ask a question, say if it wants to confuse you or test your depth of your understanding, do you agree? The question starts, do you agree the enactment of Aadhaar Act in some way impinges on the right to privacy? Comment. Now, it is your responsibility to understand what is the dimension of right to privacy, and in the Aadhaar Act, what is that dimension of right to privacy that is getting questioned or diluted? What are the safeguards that the government has ensured in the Aadhaar Act or the UIDAI Act that this data is basically used for the lawful purposes only? Are you not supposed to know all these dimensions to write the answer? So that is when, if an article comes in the newspaper, do not restrict your learning to that particular issue of that particular article only. The moment an article comes in the news, it means you have to go to its start and end where the current affairs is there, and this you have to do for every dimension. So that is when you will understand UPSC can ask any question from the point of origin till the present context also. So now many a times Aadhaar comes in news very frequently. Why? Duplicate
Aadhaars are being generated.
Controversy, basically controversy related to the duplication of the Aadhaar. And the second, many a times it so happened same Aadhaar numbers have been allotted to two different individuals. That is one dimension. The third dimension is the theft of Aadhaar data, and fourthly the linking of Aadhaar data with certain issues to get benefited from Aadhaar. Yes or no? When you said Aadhaar is voluntary, then why are you saying that to get benefit of this particular scheme of the government, you have to perforce give your Aadhaar number? So what were these schemes of the government where the government mandated Aadhaar is important? So all these things you will have to study. So that is when in that process you will understand that Aadhaar is not only important for prelims, it is also important for mains. So you have to identify. There was one question, one article yesterday we posted, Harlequin frogs. Harlequin frogs. Up now on this a mains question is not expected. So now you should know that this is purely from prelims perspective. There is one article on mangroves. There is one article on mangroves. But mangroves, a mains question can come. If you are an old student for whom geography has been covered, you understand the importance of mangrove in the ecological, environmental, sustainability in some dimensions. What are the conditions under which a mangrove grows? Where in India you will find mangrove? What is the role played by the mangroves when it comes to the coastal areas? What are the various rules and regulations that have been brought in by the government to protect the mangroves? All these dimensions become important. So not only the article which is in news, the issues surrounding that article also you have to prepare. So that is why yesterday the purpose of calling you to that particular class was to tell you how and why it is important to go to the crux of each and every issue when you read a particular article. Okay? So that is where you try to understand mains is all about current affairs. Mains is all about current affairs, and interview is 100% current affairs, prelims is 30 to 40% current affairs. That is the reason why a separate class every week 2 to 2.5 hours I am particularly taking to get into that grooves of mains answer writing. Okay, chalo, we will start off with today's lecture, primarily related to this week's current affairs that have featured in news. See, there are certain articles whom we have simplified and shared it to you on Telegram on a daily basis that we are doing. The picking of articles which I pick up for discussion where certain amount of deliberation is required, only those articles I pick up. Where the articles which I feel that are self-explanatory, any common student with basic understanding of language of English can comprehend the content of that article, I will not be discussing it here, right. If anything which is remaining agar reh jata hai, so definitely in other dimensions I will try to cover it for you. Okay? Now, so there was one article. What was this article about? The center devises new guidelines for TV channels broadcast of socially relevant topics compulsory. Now, this is part of what? Governance. Hello, this is part of governance. Governance of what? Governance of what? Governance of TV channels. Now, what are the various institutions that are in place to ensure governance? Regulatory bodies, institutions to control their behavior. अर्णव स्वामी को कंट्रोल करना पड़ता है ना. One is ministry, one is the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, one dimension. Next, the Press Trust of India. More than PTI, it is the The Press Council of India, because these are the regulatory bodies that are regulating the functioning of these institutions. Now what they have said, it devises new guidelines for broadcasting of what? Socially relevant topics. Now the question is, what is a socially relevant topic? What is a socially relevant topic? Give examples. Economy front में socially relevant topics. In the front of economy मारूंगा.
इंडस्ट्री माइक्रो
एग्रीकल्चर में क्या?
माइक्रो इंडस्ट्रीज का
एग्रीकल्चर में क्या? हाँ? Financial inclusion, the role of financial inclusion, so that they get out of the vicious circle of dependence on money lenders. Very important. Economy, one more socially relevant. Economy, so many things यार. Economy तो साला बोर्ड भर जाएगा. Be specific, to the point. Online fraudulent transactions, being aware of the online fraudulent transactions is also, see, that's what, no, the problem is, if you cannot understand what is this, if a question comes, critically comment on the recent guidelines of the central government on regulation of the TV channels. If you do not understand what is a socially relevant topic, can you define a socially relevant topic? Can you define a socially relevant topic? 2 लाइन में. इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या लिखोगे? सोशली रेलेवेंट टॉपिक. डेफिनेशन बताओ सोशली रेलेवेंट टॉपिक. ये वुमेन को छोड़ नहीं रहा है. जब मिल जाएगी ना तो ऐसे भागेगा दूर कि पलट के भी नहीं देखेगा. हाँ हाँ. इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या लिखोगे? सोशली रेलेवेंट टॉपिक्स. ओके, कैन यू फ्रेम a sentence? What is a socially relevant topic that has benefit across cross sections of the society? That has benefit across cross sections of the society, and most importantly against whom? Against the one is weaker sections, from whom? Protection from protection from गवर्नमेंट मत बोलो यार, मोदी मारेगा. Can you say fraudsters, whether individual or organizations? Yes or no? ये तुमको इंट्रोडक्शन में लिखना पड़ेगा. Then because the statement is critically comment, but now because the statement is critically comment, one of the points that the government has mandated here is, it says that, sorry, one of the points that the government has mandated is, it says that 30 minutes of, what is the news? 30 minutes of current affairs नहीं पढ़ रहे हो. 30 minutes of, yeah, the 30 minutes of document. अभी कब प्ले करना है? कब प्ले करना है? When they have to play? That is the problem. The answer is any time, no? That is the problem. रात के 12 बजे डाल देगा आधे घंटे के लिए. See, there is something known as peak time. There is something known as peak time. This is the time when maximum audience is watching. But because this peak time is also your commercial, not entertainment, commercial, entertainment for you, for him. For a businessman there is no entertainment. His only entertainment is उसके अकाउंट में कितना पैसा आया. So for you it is entertainment, but for him it is cricket. For you is entertainment, but for somebody else it is commercial. ठीक है. Now if it is, there is no time of the day specified by the government, do you think the TV channels will be ethically driven? What they will do at a time when nobody will watch. Even say if he puts at 11 a.m. in the morning and it is a news article related to, for example, a socially relevant topic related to agriculture, will the किसान खेती करेगा इस टाइम पे या उसका न्यूज चैनल बैठ के सुनेगा? Getting my point? So that is when the question is critically commenting, you have to catch the mistakes there by the government कि गलती क्या किया. This is good, but you did not specify the time of the day. तो morning or evening ये time to, just say for example there is something known as cyberbullying. We have heard about cyberbullying where somebody is blackmailing you based on some video content or some photo content of yours. We know that mostly the school children and the early college going stage children are victims of cyberbullying. If you post that news at 12 o'clock in the afternoon when he is there in the school, is there any point there? No. So that is when you will have to give these kind of examples in your answer, because the question read critically. So you have to pick up that particular dimension. One more dimension where they are talking about uplinking and downlinking. What is uplinking and downlinking? कौन बताएगा? What is the difference? Uplinking and downlinking. What is the difference? From what? Uplinking and downlinking from what? If you are sending an information from a ground station to a satellite, it is uplinking. If you are deducting anything, then it is downlinking. You are seeing Google, no? Maps. What are you doing? Uplinking or downlinking? You are doing downlinking here, because whatever data is coming through the satellite to your phone, that is what you are following. So now what it says, uplink refers to a communication channel to transmit message of electronic nature to a satellite and from the satellite. And what the government has done, the requirement, the main advantage emanating from the revised guidelines are as follows. The requirement for seeking permission for live telecast of events has been done away with. They are removing the word permission. You have to only give through registration. That's all. So critically comment, good? Yes or no? Critically comment, good. Next, no requirement of prior permission for change of language or conversion of mode of transmission from standard definition to high definition or vice versa. Only prior intimation would be required. This is for the change of language. Now, why do you think earlier there was a restriction that you need to take prior permission? Who controls the language? Which ministry? Ministry of Home Affairs. The language controlling ministry is the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, why the permission is important for this? अरे मेरी मर्जी यार, मैं मराठी में बोलूँ, पंजाबी बोलूँ, बंगाली में बोलूँ. Why it was mandated earlier that seeking of permission is important? Why seeking of permission is important earlier?
Internal security laws.
Come again?
On internal security laws.
Like
If they telecast on other than 22 languages, there may be some other anti-social elements.
जैसे लैंग्वेज से एंटी सोशल हो जाएगा. जर्मनी में अगर कुछ आया, हेट स्पीच हैज नो लैंग्वेज. हेट स्पीच हैज नो लैंग्वेज. तुम हिंदी में कुछ बोलो या पंजाबी में बोलो, तेलुगु में बोलो, इट इज वन एंड सेम. व्हाई द सीकिंग ऑफ परमिशन इज इंपॉर्टेंट?
South India is not Indian and North Indian.
स्विच द चैनल यार. हाँ,
To promote regional languages.
Maoism. Go to Maoism. See, he is not telling if this language you have to seek permission, that is not the point. I am asking any language. I have say I wanted to start a radio channel in Hindi. Why I need to take a permission before? Now why it is not required? Why before in the first place? Why this was kept as a statute, mandated statutory this thing? Propaganda. Now try to understand if somebody in the language which is closer to you, especially the mother tongue, and if it is so tribal language, if somebody talks in that language to you, you better connect with that person. Yes or no? The viewpoint of that particular person, we generally do this, right? So what happens is, if there is no, it was felt that if I do not control, say for example, somebody wanted to open a channel on Maithili language. Maithili is the language, no? Hello? Maithili language is there, right? So somebody wanted to open a channel in this particular language, and he said that my major area of broadcast would be UP, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, that area, 5 states. Now the government has to be aware that this guy is opening a channel in Maithili which is going to be broadcasted majorly in these 5 areas. It means I need to have a regulatory mechanism put in place to ensure what is the content, what is the topic, what is the tone, other dimensions. So that is what the government felt a need, so that you take prior permission and it comes to know what is the language being preferred as the mode of communication with the masses. So that is when it was felt that a prior permission would be required. Now over a period of time, government has understood that there is no point in controlling at the stage of giving permission. Let him only tell, why do I need to stop? Don't you think this is a move which is going in the mode of freedom of expression towards freedom of, yes or no? This is going towards freedom of expression. So even if you are critically commenting, you need to, the doing away of the prior permission for hosting a content in a particular language is a step in the right direction which ensures more freedom of expression. So that is how you need to pick up points. In case of emergency for a company or LLB with 2 directors or so and so, it can be changed subject to security clearance post such appointment to enable business decision making. This is related to internal. A company LLP can use news gathering equipment other than DSNG such as optic fiber, backpack, mobile, etc., for which no separate permission would be necessary. So this is basically related to news gathering equipment. So basic equipment can be utilized for doing transmission of that particular news. Come to this point. This is self-explanatory. I am not coming to this. Simplification and rationalization. It says one composite set of guidelines has replaced 2 separate guidelines. So it is basically, it is now leading to more simplification, because 2 set of guidelines, it becomes more difficult to understand and follow. The structure of the guidelines has been systematized to avoid duplication and common parameters, because it again goes towards the process of simplification. The penalty clauses have been rationalized and separate nature of penalties have been proposed for different types of contraventions as against uniform penalty at present. So this uniform penalty nikal ke, it has become penalty based on rationalization, and separate nature of offences will have separate nature of penalties. So it is going more towards rationalization. So that is how you need to read each and every dimension of your news to write a critical content on it. Now it says that the TV channels uplinking in frequency band other than C band are mandatorily required to encrypt their signals. It means any uplinking is happening which is happening in other than the C band has to be encrypted in their signals. What is the requirement?
Information should not be revealed.
Huh? अरे दी टीवी चैनल का इंटेंशन इज बेसिकली गिविंग इंफॉर्मेशन, नो? एनी अपलिंकिंग मतलब नीचे से ऊपर जा रहा है डेटा, नीचे से ऊपर जा रहा है डेटा. द टीवी चैनल्स अपलिंकिंग इन फ्रीक्वेंसी बैंड अदर देन सी बैंड are mandatorily required to encrypt their signals. What is the reason here? What is the content here? Huh? Avoiding? Can you go little depth? But encryption करने से interference कैसे कम हो रहा है? Encryption is only the language that you are communicating is different. That's all. Okay. No, but encryption से interference कैसे कम हुआ? Is my question. The communication reference is same, but why that is not mandated in C band? Bano. Why that is not mandated in C band? Why encryption is not mandated in C band in uplinking process and mandated in other bands? What happens in C band? That there are inherent safety safeguards available, and why those inherent safeguards are not available in other bands of frequency, and more importantly what are the other bands of frequency available for uplinking of data? SNT के लिए important question है, science and technology, uplinking and downlinking. This is all, you know, governance related topics. So this is an important news article that was there in the news. The next item is very important. It was in news related to the conduct of the two finger test. I think इसका एक soft 2 भी दिया था मैंने आपको. Recently what the Supreme Court said, it declared that any person conducting the two finger test on rape or sexual assault survivors would be found guilty of any even the or registered medical practitioners. If anybody conducts this two finger test, then he will be guilty of that. Now, what is the court decision? The court said that the test is two dimensions, regressive and what do you understand by the word regressive? There are two words, progressive and regressive. What is the meaning of the word regressive here? In what? Regressive here is from the dimension of conservatism. From the dimension of conservatism. It is like when you have scientific methods to evaluate whether a person is a victim of rape or not, why do you have to go for a test which is archaic, which is very old in its practice and also at the cost of privacy. So that is when the court ruled this, and on top of it there is no scientific basis, as it neither proves nor disapproves. And the more importantly, whatever the doctor will write in his report after conducting this two finger test, it is not admissible as an evidence in the court of law. So if that is the case, one, it is regressive, second, it is invasive, third, it is unscientific, fourth, it is inadmissible. In all these four dimensions, why then there is a need to go for this particular test? And on top of it, in 2013 only the Supreme Court said it is criminal to conduct this two finger test. So 5 dimensions are there, and the police officer who is ordering this particular test can also be booked for contempt of the court. The police officer or the investigation officer who is ordering this two finger test is also. It is said that the statement of the investigation officer based on the basic elementary evidence given by the rape victim survivor is sufficient enough to prima facie decide whether there is a rape case or not. The court has given the right to the police officer based on the investigation, preliminary investigation, to establish whether there is a criminal offence committed or not. In this scenario, when it has already been given to the police officer, what is the need to again go for a two-finger test? This is the context. And as I told you, 2013 only, very important. Make a note of this particular case law, Lilu versus State of Haryana. The Supreme Court had held that the two-finger test violates the right of privacy of the rape survivors, and Justice Verma committee also recommended the discontinuation of the two-finger test, which is conducted to determine the laxity of the vaginal muscles. Conducted to determine the laxity. Justice Verma committee, very important committee when it comes to these kind of cases. And जस्टिस वर्मा कमिटी का एक 2-page नोट्स बनाओ, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. जस्टिस वर्मा कमिटी, it gave far reaching recommendations related to criminal law, basically certain amendments to the criminal law to provide for quicker trial and enhanced punishments for criminals accused of committing sexual assaults against women. Justice Verma committee, very important. Any issue related to women centric question in mains, the reference of Verma committee should come, and you should always tell the Verma committee also opined in this particular regard. So read the recommendations, summaries are available in Google, make a small notes on that. Okay? Now this we have covered, that it covers the, tries to test the laxity of the vaginal muscles and examine the hymen. Now very important, one more important dimension here is habituated to sexual intercourse. This is what the doctor tries to hold. Now if she is an unmarried girl, what the Supreme Court said is that if she is an unmarried girl, maybe this could have been justified. What happens if a rape victim is a married woman? How do you justify based on the two-finger test that she is not a habitual offender? So that is when the committee said it is so archaic in its nature that it is not does not have any scientific standing, so should not be carried out. But still, unluckily, even today this happens in the remote villages, especially when the victims are tribals, especially when the victims are from minority societies, especially when the victims are from the weaker sections of the society, economic weaker sections of the society. They are being subjected to these kind of physical abuses even today. Even today it is happening. Okay? But try to understand this. That's what I said now. Invalid for sexually active women who are generally married women. So it has got no meaning. One more dimension, it says that it is for the investigation officer to conclude after their investigation whether or not rape was committed. It means that the doctor is not specifying anything whether it was a rape or not, because the doctor does not give his or her opinion about rape, as rape is a legal term and not a medical diagnosis. So there is no point that because the doctor cannot write, yes, the victim is subjected to rape. No, he cannot write that. If he writes that, जज उसको भी बुला लेगा कोर्ट में और फिर उसकी पैंट उतारी जाएगी अलग से, because he is not the authority to justify whether a rape has happened or not. ठीक है? Now, one more dimension. The mentioning of the marks of resistance and signs of resent. It is the only This is what the doctor is supposed to write. Did he or she, the doctor, found any marks of resistance on the body of the victim or not? That's all. Based on that, he is the person who has to finally decide what has actually happened or not. See, even if the investigation officer is wrong in his appreciation related to rape, he is not punished for it. Say for example, rape did not happen. For example, rape did not happen. It has been found in the court of law, rape did not happen. But the investigation officer concluded and then filed a charge sheet. Yes or no? Now when the court finally gives its conclusion that there was no question of rape, the investigation officer will not be questioned in the court of law why you have filed a charge sheet of rape. No. Why? Because based on only the preliminary investigation inquiries, he is supposed to file the charge sheet. If in the future, in the detailed investigation, if it comes to light that the individual was not a victim of rape but was consensual sex or it did not happen, the investigation officer will not be held responsible for that. So that is the biggest advantage that this guy is happening. Now, but there are some people, there are some challenges in enforcing. One is the lack of training and adherence to the guidelines, lack of interconnection. This is very important. This is self-explanatory, you can read this, but lack of interconnection I will talk. See, whenever investigation happens, there are various institutions that come into play. Say for example, especially with women-centric issues and issues related to rape, lot of institutions come in coordination to finally do some investigation on it. First, as we know, this is the first entity. Second, as we spoke just about, this guy is the second dimension. Third is the Forensic Science Laboratory, FSL, very important, the Forensic Science Laboratory. And very important one is Ministry of Health, that also comes into play because it is a women centric issue. The National Commission for Women also comes into play. Within the Ministry of Home Ministry to hoga hi hoga, within the Ministry of Home, the details of crime records and the crimes and criminal tracking and network systems, the CCTNS will also come into play. So all, why this is required? Why this is required? CCTNS? Why this is required? How important this is? Records of what? Whose record? Crime and criminal tracking record. The accused, does he or she have a past criminal record or not? Say whenever you are accused of crimes like this, certain data of you, biometrics are taken, they are all stored in this CCTNS module. The National Crime Records Bureau हम बात करते हैं. This is the platform where these details are fed. The moment the Forensic Science Laboratory confirms the DNA details or the details of that individual, those details are fed in the system and one button enter. If any of the list holders, if the data match with them, immediately the identification of the accused will happen. If that accused happens to be a habitual offender or a repeated offender and the data of that individual is already there in our this thing. So that is how the establishment of guilt for the evidence of that, the CCTNS data comes into handy. Now what it is saying, there is a lack of interconnection. This is the biggest problem, and the biggest problem is that the interaction between the health ministry and the home ministry is very limited. Please Google about interoperable criminal justice system. Please write and Google interoperable criminal justice system. Interoperable criminal justice system. This is a system wherein different departments and ministries try to come on a common platform to work on certain dimensions related to crimes, some certain dimensions related to crime. Okay? So What is the suggestions they are giving? Basic suggestion is improving the investigation process. This is one dimension of recommendation that they are giving. And secondly, please just make a note of these side headings. Strict implementation, congruence within the ministries and departments. Congruence is nothing but cooperation, and investigation with efficient institutional mechanisms. These things need to be ensured. Okay? Yeah, please make a note of this. Amendment to the criminal law in 2013. Amendment 2013. It amended the Evidence Act to insert section 53A. What it did? That the evidence of a victim's character or of her previous sexual experience with any person shall not be relevant to the issue of consent or the quality of consent in prosecutions of sexual offences. A beautiful, line. It says that the victim's character or her previous sexual experiences have nothing to do with that particular case. Say for example, there is a lady who is in the profession of prostitution. Even though she can go and file a case of rape in a particular incident. Very, very important. That is how it says that the evidence of a victim's character or of her previous sexual experience with any person shall not be relevant to the issue of consent or quality of consent in the prosecution of a particular offence against that woman. It means even though women who are in the what you call the profession of prostitution also have a right to file a case of rape against anybody. Their character or their past experiences of sexual intercourse will not be taken as a basis for that. Only the what you call consent related to this particular incident, whether there was a consent or not. This consent again is in news. Age of consent. Take care. Age of, see, the women centric issues are getting lot of attention. So this is one positive dimension that is happening. So anything related to women, you should have templates ready with you for writing your mains answers. Okay? What is the way forward they are giving? What is the way forward they are giving? Please, when a question comes on these things, these two words are very, very important. Inhuman and irrational, that attacks the right of privacy and is a serious blow to the mental, physical and ethical conditions of the victim. You cannot do this because it is inhuman and the process itself is also irrational. Very, very important. Okay? Write a mains question. Write a question. The recent judgment of the Supreme Court, once again reiterating the recent judgment of the Supreme Court, once again reiterating, reiterating means reinforcing, okay, reiterating the conduct of two-finger test as unscientific, amounting to misconduct, is a step in right direction, Comment on the basis of relevant safeguards. The last word has changed the entire dimension of your answer. Last word, relevant, safeguards. It is not your opinion he is asking. In the backdrop of various safeguards that are available to a women, you will be writing on those lines. One is the Lilu versus state of Haryana will come. The Verma committee report comes. The opinion of Supreme Court comes. The amendment in 2013 53 evidence comes. These dimensions should be for part of your answer. So your answer should be revolving around these topics. Okay. Yeah. There was one more, just a what you call information, not much. Pashmina shawls, very in news. From the prelims perspective, not question is not important from mains perspective as such. Okay? It's very rare that these kind of questions come in your mains perspective. So 2-3 important dimensions. One, you need to understand Pashmina shawl. Sorry, the Pashmina shawl is from a mountain goat found in the Changtang plateau in Tibet. Locate Changtang plateau on map, and also in some parts of Ladakh. Changtang, CHANGTANG, Changtang plateau. Try to locate this on map. Geography के लिए important है. ठीक है. Manufacture of Pashmina is a largely unorganized cottage and handicraft. It is unorganized, largely unorganized. Now, the problem is people are selling Pashmina shawls, saying that it is a Pashmina shawl, but technically the wool is derived from Shatush, which is a Tibetan antelope, which is locally called as Chiru. So there is something known as adulteration happening here. Something known as adulteration which is happening here. It is a antelope. It is a antelope and it is a goat. There is a difference. In the Pashmina, I have given a special article. In that, I have given certain dimensions related to about the goat also. Why that Pashmina is famous. What is the quality of the wool derived from Pashmina. All these details are given in that. Please read through it. Important. Now, yeah. The reason why I kept this for today's discussion is I want you to Google about Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. Very, very important. Wildlife Crime Control Bureau from your prelims perspective. Very important. And one more dimension, that the Shatush shawls, because the trading on an antelope called Chiru and an entity called CITES, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, listed the Tibetan antelope in 1979, leading to a ban on its sale and trade of Shatush shawls and scarves, basically the scarves. So you are not supposed to be doing it, but people are selling it on the name of Pashmina shawls. Okay? And there is an entity called the Pashmina Exporters and Manufacturers Association has also moved a petition before the Delhi High Court for a direction for what? To improve the existing testing infrastructure. Very, very important, wherein they want to have a technique of DNA testing to find out whether a particular shawl is made up of Pashmina or Shatush shawl. Okay? So Pashmina shawl is permitted. Pashmina shawl is permitted, but the Shatush shawl is non-permitted or banned. Okay? So don't get confused. Very, very important. And Shatush shawl is from an antelope skin and Pashmina is from a mountain goat called mountain goat called Capras. भगवान बचा है. चलो, yeah, sovereign green bond framework. I think this also I had shared. Yes or no? 2 minutes will take, not much. One important point that you need to understand here is there is a small exception to this. What is a green bond? What is a green bond? The money such raised through an issue of bond can be, what is a bond? बच्चों, youngsters, the freshers, bond क्या होता है? जो एक लड़का और एक लड़की के बीच में होता है. हाँ, written form of agreement. See what happens is, मैं इकोनॉमी के थ्रू समझाता हूँ, लड़का लड़की के थ्रू नहीं. Whenever the government wants to raise money, government wants money चाहिए ना, मोदी को पैसा चाहिए. When government wants to raise money, there are various platforms available to the government. ठीक है, government can take bank loan, government can take loan from outside the country, India can take loan from World Bank, India can take loan from IMF, India can take loan from ADB, Asian Development Bank, India can take loan from Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, we can take loan from New Development Bank or the BRICS Bank it is called, or we can take loan from America, we can take loan from Japan. All these platforms are available. One more platform that is available to the government to raise money is something known as issue of bonds. Issue of bonds. What the government does, the reason why issue of bonds is considered to be a good way of raising money is money would be raised domestically, so that there is no problem of foreign exchange getting disturbed. So you can, because the money taken by, see, the biggest advantage of domestically raising the money is, if the government does not have money, government can print and give the money back to its citizen. This as a last option is available to the government. So it is always advisable to the government to go for domestically raising the money, because it does not have international repercussions, because the exchange of dollars and other things do not happen. So one methodology of raising domestic money is issue of bonds. Government will issue a bond. Bond is basically a promise to pay in future. So today if the government wants 100 rupees from your so 60-70 people जितने भी आप लोग बैठे हैं उसमें से 10 people will get the chance to invest 10 rupees each. The government will issue a particular paper which is called a bond to you, and the government will pay you interest also. The government will pay you the principal at a future date. So this is called a issue of bond. Green bond is basically the government is issuing this bond only to fund a project which is environmental friendly. If the government is issuing a bond for that purpose, it is called a green bond. And when the government is planning to raise money from abroad for environmental purposes, then it is called a sovereign green bond. अरे समझ में आया बच्चों? Precious, ठीक है? So bond is to raise money, green bond is to raise money for environmental friendly projects, sovereign green bond is to raise money for environmental projects across the globe, from across the globe. So now government approves sovereign credit bond framework. It means that the government has changed some rules or brought in some framework related to issue of sovereign green bonds. What it is? The government has excluded nuclear power, please underline the word nuclear power, and large hydropower projects exceeding 25 megawatts from the ambit of investments to be made through the issuance of sovereign green bonds. इसका क्या मतलब है?
More than 25 megawatts of hydropower and nuclear projects cannot be used. The proceeds cannot be used for such projects.
The proceeds of the money raised through sovereign green bonds, if you are raising for an environmental project of creating nuclear power or hydropower. What is the hydropower? Electricity generated through water, through flow of water से electricity generate होता है. If your project is about 25 megawatts, if you are using the money that is raised on through sovereign green bonds, if the capacity of that project is above 25 megawatt, and if that project is in the field of nuclear power, or hydropower, then you cannot use this particular funds. You cannot use this particular funds. So if it is below 25 megawatts, you can use this particular. Why? Because it is understood that these projects at this particular scale or above this scale, though they at the face of it appear to be not disturbing the environment, but in certain dimensions they have the capacity to negatively affect the environment. So for these kind of projects you cannot raise the money through this route. Normal raising you use the money, no problem, but not through the issue of sovereign grain bonds. इसी के चलते the COP में कुछ हुआ था. UN Secretary General made one statement. What was that word?
Sustain or finish.
भेजा मैं बना के इतना बड़ा पेज A4 में. ग्रीन वॉशिंग. हाँ अब हाँ ग्रीन वॉशिंग. तुम भूल जाते हो या पढ़ते नहीं हो? हाँ గ్రీన్ వాషింగ్ మతలబు మనం బట్టలు తుక్కుంటాం కదా, ఆ సబ్బు గ్రీన్ కలర్లో ఉండాలన్నమాట. గ్రీన్ వాషింగ్. వాట్ ఈస్ గ్రీన్ వాషింగ్?
Labeling the products as environmental friendly, but they are not environmental.
Need not be completely environmental friendly. Labeling a particular product or a service, not only a product, or a service as environmental friendly and trying to showcase to the world that I am doing so much on environmental consciousness. So that is when the UN Secretary General spoke about it. Who is he? सर ए से कुछ नाम है, उसके आगे मेरे को कुछ नहीं पता. Please read about him. Why he was made the UN Secretary General? See, the most prestigious organization in the world, yes or no? United Nations happens to be the most prestigious organization in the world. So the selection of the person who should chair it is also important, yes or no? So just this guy and the previous guy, who they were, which country they belong to, why they were made the UN Secretary General, थोड़ा गूगल करो. आधा घंटा, ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं देना, half an hour. It will open certain dimensions of your thinking at that level. ठीक है? So try to find out. उसके बाद उसका नाम नहीं भूलोगे. उसके बाद उसका नाम नहीं भूलोगे. UPSC इंटरव्यू में पूछ लिया हु इज दी UN सेक्रेटरी जनरल, सर ए से स्टार्ट होता है, इसके आगे मत पूछना. सेकंड नेम जी से स्टार्ट होता है, उसके आगे मत पूछना. ठीक है? देन ही विल से ये इंटरव्यू इधर ही खत्म होता है, इसके आगे मत पूछना. ठीक है? तो यू हैव टू स्टडी.
స్టేట్ గవర్నమెంట్ అంటే స్టేట్ గవర్నమెంట్ సెంట్రల్ గవర్నమెంట్ రైజ్ చేస్తుంది.
చెప్పండి. అరే బాండ్స్ కెన్ బి ఇష్యూడ్ బై ఎనీ బోత్ స్టేట్ అండ్
అంటే సెంట్రల్ పర్మిషన్ లేకుండా ఎనీ స్టేట్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ కంట్రీతో
there are some restrictions. There are some restrictions, but you can.
లిమిట్ ఉంటుందా సార్?
Yes, restriction. అదే
మనీ లిమిట్.
అదేరా restriction అంటే దాన్నే అంటున్నాను. లిమిట్. No, no. Raising from foreign country specific funding is different. Issuing a bond is different. See, firstly try to understand, if a state government, Bihar, is raising a green bond, sovereign green bond, Telangana is raising a sovereign green bond, where people will subscribe more? Probably Telangana more, because of the strong economy, IT and all those dimensions. Whenever you are raising money from abroad, he also is having the feeling whether this guy will pay back or not. Yes or no? It is not always about interest only, no? The principal also should come back to you. So that is whenever an entity tries to raise money from that level, the first question it asks itself is, if I raise this, somebody will invest or not? So the reason why the central government tries to control certain states, or the states for that matter, from raising money from abroad is because already the financial position of the state, if it is weak, and if nobody is controlling the money intake from abroad, obviously tomorrow there is a high probability that that state will default. Are yes or no? So if that state will default in some dimensions, the country has defaulted. Yes or no? So to keep a check on this kind of misgovernance, we call it in financial sector, there is an element of control by the central government in the state government's financial functioning also. It has to be there. Otherwise the state will go on. It is very easy for a state to raise loan, no? That is where if say for example, in the market, if only government goes to raise the money, and if an individual goes and asks money to the bank will say khatam ho gaya paisa, pura paisa kaun le liya? Government has taken all the money, so you are left with no money. If he has to give you the money, he will definitely not give it to you at the rate what he gave it to the government. He will give it to you at a rate higher than the government. So this higher rate is creating an inflationary pressure on the market. Yes or no? So all these dimensions have to be calculated before giving a yes or a no signal to anything. Center state relation, financial relations में पढ़ा जाएगा, ठीक है? Yeah. So this is one more important dimension. In budget 2022, there was a mention about the sovereign green bonds. Our great lady had mentioned about this. ठीक है? Who is this great lady? Huh? Great lady Nirmala Sita. Yeah. Now this topic, internationalization of rupee. Just to explain the concept, I have chosen this article. Nothing much from the news as such. Basically the center has expanded certain norms related to incentivization and export obligations. Two words, very very important. Make a box. Export obligations and incentives under the foreign trade policy. The new foreign trade policy was supposed to come, right? But did it come? No. The government said we need some more time to devise a new foreign trade policy. The moment the foreign trade policy is devised, new, whenever it will come, I will take a special class on that particular topic only, in which I will explain what is an incentive and export obligations based on the new foreign trade policy in detail. But for the time being, I will superficially try to explain what are these things. Don't get confused. See, foreign trade policy is very important for any country which has got some international engagements with other countries. We engage with many countries in the world. Trade engagement is there, political engagement is there, socio-cultural engagement is there, military engagement is there. All these engagements are there. But now we will restrict our discussion to basically the economic engagements, and we know that to control the trade across the boundaries, there are 2-3 important entities. One is WTO, जिसका full form है World Trade Organization. WTO is there, World Trade Organization. This is one entity that is trying to control the trade across the globe. Now what happens is, whenever you are importing something or exporting something, the government tries to control that import and export in some dimensions. Say for example, there was a bike called Harley Davidson. Earlier there was 100% tax on this particular vehicle. If the cost of that vehicle was 15 lakh rupees, the moment it has to come into the Indian market, it will become 15 plus 50, 30 lakhs. The reason why it is, the government does not want my Hero Honda or Bajaj to have a competition with Harley Davidson. So I want to give an edge to my local manufacturing concerns related to automobile industry. So here I am trying to control what? What is the underlying intention? To support my own domestic automobile industry. The same way, whenever you are importing something, because there are certain ways you are incentivized by the government. In the foreign trade policy which is presently prevalent is, when you import something purely for the purpose of exporting, say if you are just importing for the purpose of sale, no, Harley Davidson, are you importing this for the purpose of re-exporting? No. But if you are importing something purely for the purpose of using it in some production process, and the final result, if you are selling it outside any other country, because that will get foreign exchange to my country. Yes, so the government incentivizes those kind of imports also rather than penalizing. There is a difference. When a product is coming for sale, I am penalizing, but when a product is coming for participating in some production process and the end result, if it is going outside without any what you call leakage into the domestic market, purely coming for production process, again purely going outside for export, those type of imports I am doing? Incentivizing. Maybe I will say 0% import duty. Here how much percent? 100%. So now the moment I say 0% import duty, it means I have incentivized, but I have penalized here. So whatever product, say for example this product was a chair. Now this chair cannot go into the domestic market, this chair has to go into the export market only. So this incentive comes with a export obligation. This chair cannot come into the domestic market. If this chair comes into the domestic market, because you got 0% import tax, because the chair that was manufactured, whatever parts of the chair that were manufactured abroad, probably they were manufactured at a very low cost, and if they come into the market with 0% what you call import duty, then definitely the cost of this final chair in the domestic market would be much more lesser. So the entire domestic Indian market will get negatively affected. So the government is planning to change certain incentives and export obligations. So when the new foreign trade policy comes, there are lot of schemes in the foreign trade policy. I will detailedly explain all those schemes also to you. 4-5 घंटे का class होगा, but very interesting class, because this is one area where US has maximum drawn India to the WTO appellate body. Most cases against India were filed in WTO's appellate body based on rules and regulations enumerated in the foreign trade policy. What was that one item? Anybody? MEIS, Merchandise Exports India scheme. MEIS करके एक scheme था. This was against which the US had penalized or dragged India to the WTO appellate body mechanism. So the new foreign trade policy, it is expected any time, maybe in a month or two it will come. Definitely before your prelims I will take a special class on the entire foreign trade policy. It will be interesting topic. Okay?
ఒక ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చెప్తారా? అంటే ఓన్లీ మన కంట్రీలో అవుట్ ఆఫ్ నుంచి వచ్చి మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ చేసుకొని ఎక్స్పోర్ట్.
Many items are there, automobile items are there. See, because the reason why it is happening is the availability of cheap labor. The availability of cheap labor. Raw material they are not using ours. Raw material, that is what the raw material you are importing, and what you are exporting? Final good. And what you are using? Just the check. Apple phone इंडिया में क्यों बन रहा है? इंडिया में कोई टेक्नोलॉजी यूज हो रहा है क्या उसका? Zero. It is only assembling. It is only the assembling which is happening. You have so many what you call in the aeronautical industries. India is a net exporter of petroleum products. I hope you are aware. We are net exporters. Import, local consumption is also there, but because there are so many refineries in India who are purifying and then selling the material, the input oil which is coming, the crude oil which is coming into the refineries, which is meant only for export, is coming at a different rate. Which is coming for consumption in our country, it is coming at a different rate, because it has to be purely only exported. So that is how it changes. Okay.
Ground level, how the government will ensure that
Every product has a code. Sorry. Every product has a code in the international market. मैं बताऊंगा जब फॉरेन ट्रेड की क्लास लूंगा ना. Every product has a code in the international market. It is called HS code. It is called a HS code. So every product, this pen will have a code in the international market. So whatever support you are giving in importing this pen, if you want to export this pen outside, then you will have to have minimum regulatory taxing and all this products. Okay? Yeah. Again important article. Kerala to amend. What amend? Amend IPC, and also very important. Why it is amending? Because it wants to make printing, publishing, distribution of grossly indecent or scurrilous, SCURRILOUS, scurrilous is defamatory words, okay, scurrilous matter or matter intended for blackmail as punishable offence. Okay? It is presently under consideration. Now the question is, why is Kerala amending the Indian Penal Code? Because law and order is a state subject, it can do. Already certain states, I think इसमें दिया है कहीं, yeah, taking the legislation introduced in Odisha and Tamil Nadu. Now Kerala is also proposing to amend the IPC and the CRPC both. Amendment of the IPC and the CRPC both. Now homework for you is, what is the procedure? Very important. This is your homework. अगर IPC CRPC को एक state if it wants to amend, what is the procedure, what is the majority required, what is the entire process of what you call enact legislation process, you should be aware. Very important. How much majority would be required, governor के पास जाएगा, can he withhold it for the presidential consent, all these dimensions need to be covered here. ठीक है? Very important. Two sections it wants to introduce, 292A and through the legislation after section 292 of the IPC, which deals with the sale of obscene books, pamphlets, drawings, paintings, which is appeals to the prurient interest. What is prurient interest? Prurient, PRURIENT. What is prurient? What is prurient? What is prurient? Intense. Anything that gives you sexual provocation or sexual pleasure. It is called prurient interest. These are legal terminologies, okay? Prurient interest. हमारा पूरा legal Britishers ने लिखा है, तो you have those high end words. That is how words like scurrilous, we generally use the word defamation. We use the word more of defamation, but they tend to use more words. ठीक है? This is one dimension. I think one more article. This is important. See, earlier क्या था? Before, about Manrega and all, you can study on your own. Before this, if a Gram Panchayat has already 20 works undergoing, if in a Gram Panchayat 20 works are already undergoing under Manrega, they cannot call for more works earlier. Now the Kerala government said 20 is too less, we have the capacity up till 50. And in a Gram Panchayat where the area is bigger, where there are more number of people, to accommodate more number of people, the Gram Panchayat need more projects, yes or no? So that is why the problem what is happening to the states is, and under Manrega if you are aware, if an able bodied individual applies के मुझे काम चाहिए, the government becomes obligatory to give him work, and in failure the government has to pay unemployment wages to that. Are yes or no? So to obviate that particular situation, some of the state governments, especially Kerala, it said that because I have a what you call statutory blocking at only 20 projects at given point of time, I want this to be increased to 50. So that is how why it happened, because in the month of July the states were directed by the center in the month of July 2022 that a new muster roll for work may not be issued if 20 number of works are available in a gram panchayat. So the new muster roll cannot be issued to that state. So that is when most of the states which are anti-BJP states happen to be, they all opposed. They said in our states the gram panchayat's capacity to do work is much more than other gram panchayats across the country. So we want the number of works to be increased. So that is when they gave 50. I hope you understood the context. Are yes or no? You understood the context? So that is where I wanted you to know. And about Manrega also in detail I have given. If you want, we can just revise. Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, very important, under the Ministry of Rural Development, and guaranteed 100 days of employment in every financial year to adult members of any rural household willing to do public work related unskilled manual labor. Very important, unskilled manual labor, guaranteed 100 days of employment. Okay. And very important, at least 1/3 of the beneficiaries have to be, please make a note, at least 1/3 of the beneficiaries have to be women, and wages must be paid according to the statutory minimum wages specified for agricultural laborers. Very important line, agricultural laborers, not industrial laborers. Agricultural laborers in the state under the Minimum Wages Act 1948. So homework for you is, what is the daily minimum wage for agricultural laborers? This is different in different states. Hello, this is different in different states, this minimum wage. So for the state which you belong to and for the state of Telangana, you find out. ठीक है, definitely a question will be asked. इंटरव्यू में पूछते हैं ऐसे सवाल फालतू वाले, ठीक है. So this is a demand driven scheme, everybody knows about it. Decentralized planning. Yeah, one more important article related to National Human Rights Commission. Very recently the NHRC issued a notice to the Delhi Chief Secretary. 5 Uzbekistan women went missing in India. Now the first question is, ये मरने आए क्यों थे यहाँ? 5 Uzbekistan women went missing in India. Anybody following the news? What was the news about? Why did they come in the first place? What are Uzbekistan women doing in India? It is not women trafficking, it is migrant trafficking. They were brought to India saying कि तुम्हारा नौकरी लगा देंगे. 7 women had come. 7 women had come and temporarily they were kept in a shelter home in Dwarka. धीरे से 5 लोग वहाँ से निकल लिए. So that is when now there is a suspicion what has happened to them. Those 5 women who are missing, 2 are still there. So now the problem is, in this backdrop the NHRC has issued a notice to the Delhi Chief Secretary and the Commissioner of Police के गए कहाँ वो 5 लोग, find out. So just imagine what kind of pressure the Delhi Police will have today, because Chief Secretary को इसने मारा और ये Chief Secretary पुलिस को मारेगा और पुलिस वाला घूमता रहेगा बेचारा रात दिन के उज़्बेक कहाँ से लेके आऊँ 5 लोग. ठीक है. Now important points related to NHRC, just write NHRC. 1, It can take suo motu action, very very important. NHRC can take suo motu action. What is suo motu? Nobody has to go to NHRC and complain. Based on media reports, based on its self-awareness, NHRC can issue a notice, can take action suo motu, very important. Independent statutory body. The moment statutory means it is supported by an act of the Parliament. Established in 1993. What is the act? Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. National Human Rights Commission. Very very important. Statutory, independent statutory body. Watchdog of human rights in India. Very important. The NHRC is the watchdog of human rights in India. Established in conformation with the Paris Principles. Very very important. What is this Paris Principles? Conformation with the Paris Principles. What happened in Paris? Paris Principles. 1993. Paris Principles. In the United Nations, established in conformity with the Paris Principles, adopted for the promotion and protection of human rights in Paris, October 1991, and endorsed by the General Assembly of United Nations in 1993. So there was an international opinion on human rights protection in 1991. Now the question mark is, why human rights के ऊपर a decision in 1991? Afghanistan war more or less closed in 1989, when the Russian so-called invasion was withdrawn. In the Afghanistan, surely Afghanistan is one of the reasons, but the time period is 79 to, and you have to understand here the human rights violations are generally by them. So they will not bring anything directly which is going to be against them. So try to understand that. So why in 1991? Soviet disintegration is there somewhere. No, Soviet disintegration, he is right, Soviet disintegration. When the sovereign independent states were being formed, when the sovereign independent states were being formed, there were lot of issues related to the rights of Slavs, the local Russian tribes. So that is when, against the Russian probable taking over of these sovereign independent states, again this human rights became an important issue in 1991. Okay? Other small issues were happening, but that's how it is important in 91. By the time it could get ratified by the UN General Assembly, it took another 2 years. Okay? Now, ratification of General Assembly. Likho, box bano. Ratification by General Assembly, procedure, minimum ratification. Procedure and minimum ratification. General Assembly में acceptance के लिए what is that minimum ratification required, what is the procedure established. ठीक है? How many countries have to ratify minimum for something to become mandatory for the rest of the world to follow. So these dimensions important. And one more thing related to NHRC, it is not a single guy, it is a multi-member body where there is a chairperson and there are 5 full-time members and 7 deemed members. 5 full-time members and 7 deemed members. These deemed members are members who are experts in certain fields where human rights is directly or indirectly involved. But they are chairperson and 5 members. Okay? Now, the person who has been the Chief Justice of India or a judge of the Supreme Court can become a chairman, right? And they are appointed by the President on the recommendations of a committee. Which committee? A 6-member committee where Prime Minister, as it said, the Speaker of Lok Sabha, the Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha, the leader of opposition, very important in both the house, the leader of opposition. Box banao. Committees where the leader of opposition is a member. Committees where the leader of opposition is a member. Committees where the leader of opposition is a member. एक लिस्ट बनाओ उस committees का. Which are those committees? ठीक है? And also the Union Home Minister. Who is the chairman of Rajya Sabha? Vice President is the chairman of Rajya Sabha. यहाँ पे कौन है? ठीक है? Deputy chairman of the Rajya Sabha, right? They hold for a office for a period of 3 years or 70 years. मतलब 60 के बाद 10 years तक retirement plan है. 10 साल तक you can be in the NHRC. The president can remove any member from the office under some circumstances. Removal procedure is there only on charges of proved misbehavior or incapacity, and this has to be proved by a inquiry conducted by a Supreme Court judge. It is not the pleasure of the president. No, it is proved misbehavior or incapacity that would be established by a committee or inquiry committee that is headed by a Supreme Court judge. If that committee finds that there is a proved misbehavior or incapacity, then any of the members can be removed by the president. Very important. And there are certain divisions. There are 5 specialized divisions in NHRC. Please make a note. Law division, investigation division, policy research and program division, training and administration division. 5 divisions, and most important division is your investigation decision. And the policy decision, basically the policy research and programs division, it keeps guiding the president related to the matters related to, it educates the president on various issues related to human rights that are happening in our country. One is law, the second is investigation, research, policy and research, fourth is training, and last is administrative division. 5 divisions. Okay? Now, very important. See, it has all the powers of a civil court. Very important. It has all the powers of a civil court, and its proceedings have judicial character. It is not quasi judicial, it is judicial. Very important. एक bit आएगा prelims में, confuse नहीं होना. The proceedings of the NHRC have judicial character. It is not non-judicial. And we have covered this either suo moto or after receiving a petition from somebody, NHRC. And one more important, it has the power to interfere in any judicial proceedings which are involving allegations of matters related to human rights. It has the power to intervene in any judicial proceedings. Why? Because the chairman कौन है? Retired Chief Justice of the Supreme Court or a senior judge of Supreme Court. वो भी पढ़ा लिखा आदमी है ना. So that is the reason why it has also been given the power. But there are certain limitations, right? We'll see the limitations also, roles and responsibilities के बाद. Now, see, one more thing. It is empowered to utilize the services of any officer or investigation agency. Very important. The NHRC has a right to utilize the services of any investigation officer of its choice or any investigation agencies of the central government or the state government for the purpose of investigating complaints of human rights violation. You can get on your name letter, you are hereby made the chairman of a committee to find out the probable human rights violations in so and so place of so and so district in so and so state. then you are duty bound to carry out that particular investigation wholeheartedly. You cannot question, my state government did not give me permission. No, the message has come directly from the NHRC. Now, it can look into a matter, this is one of the biggest limitations. It can look into a matter within 1 year of its occurrence only. That is, the commission is not empowered to inquire into any matter after the expiry of 1 year from the date on which the act constituting violation of human rights is alleged to have been committed. It does not mean you cannot go to normal court. No, you always have the right to go to the normal court, but the NHRC's power is only limited within 1 year. If that 1 year lapses, NHRC does not have a role to play, right? And one more important, whatever proceedings it is doing, whatever judicial proceedings it is doing, whatever recommendations that the NHRC will give, they are only recommendatory in nature. It means that it does not have a power to, the punishing power goes back to the courts. The punishing power goes back to the courts only. But it can do everything and send the recommendation to the center, right? It has limited role, powers and jurisdiction with respect to violation of human rights by the members of armed forces, because they are governed by their own Army Act, Air Force Act or the Naval Act. So very limited powers related to human rights violation. That is how in an Armed Forces Special Powers Act disturbed area, the role of NHRC becomes very limited. That is how the role of NHRC becomes very limited. Okay? That is why one of the problem. One more thing. It can visit any jail or any institution. Nobody can question, you did not inform us before coming. No. You have to give him green corridor. You have to give them that access. Okay? It spreads to one more news article on capital punishment. I think इसका एक मैंने वो भी दिया था आपको, death penalty rules and regulations, some related to death penalty. What was the sequence of petitions? कौन बताएगा? तुम लोग नहीं पढ़ रहे हो. The sequence of petitions, no? Review petition, mercy petition, so and so petition. हाँ. How many of you opened and I know how many of you have opened and seen. I have that capacity in Telegram to see कौन खोल के पढ़ा इसको. हाँ. And I generally see Yogeshwar studying, reading. I see Nagarjuna reading. I see Premalata reading. Premalata also corrected me in one of the articles. There was a error, so she corrected me also. बाकी खोल के पढ़ भी नहीं रहे. Why you are not serious with UPSC? If UPSC punishes you capitally, no? UPSC का capital punishment is more than painful than death. Okay? Because it will not allow you to die, it will not let you live also. Okay? So don't give the chance to UPSC to play with you. If you give a chance, it will surely play. Acha, suno. There was an attack on the Red Fort in 2000. Attack on the Red Fort in 2000. Finally, the people who were involved there, the Supreme Court ने review petition को confirm किया. Okay, it confirmed the death penalty given to those people. Now, the reason why I wanted to take this article for discussion today is, I wanted to discuss the sequence of death penalty related what you call listing in the Supreme Court. Okay. Now, one important thing that you need to understand here is, in India, capital punishment is how many forms of capital punishments are there in India? How many forms of capital punishments are there in India? Capital punishment is freshers and the foundation students. Capital punishment does not mean money. Capital here does not mean money. Capital here means death by hanging is called capital punishment. Here capital is not money. Please do not go back home. Here capital means death punishment. In India, what we majorly follow is punishment through hanging. Punishment through hanging. But there is another way of punishment also in India. That is death by shooting. Death by shooting. It is done for the people who are convicted of certain offences under the Army Act. So those people can be executed through shooting also. I tried to research about it and find some data. If somebody has been executed like that, I did not get any data. But there is a provision that exists. So if in the option, one of the options is the only way of executing capital punishment is hanging, it is a wrong statement. Because in India, the capital punishment can also be given in the form of shooting also. It can be given in the form of shooting also, right? Why hanging is the most preferred choice of capital punishment? There should be some reason, no? There should be some reason, right? Yeah. Less painful? Hanging is very painful. Why capital punishment is chosen as the most preferred way of executing offenders? She is right when she says very important, confirmed death होगा. If it is death by shooting, if you missed your target, उसको सर पे लगने की वजह कंधे पे लगी, तो क्या करोगे? हाँ? नहीं. The shooting is what you call abrogated. You have to treat him first for that shoulder injury, then again you have to, it is more painful. अगर तुम उसको जानबूझ के तंग करना चाह रहे हो तो इधर उधर पहले मारो, फिर ठीक करो. Which is that movie? Madhuri Dixit and Shah Rukh Khan, very old movie. Huh? Anjam. If I don't, even I also don't remember. Shah Rukh misbehaves with Madhuri. This girl decides to teach him a lesson, pretends as if she is in love with him, gets closer to him, then shows what actually the intention is. Very beautiful movie. So it is closer to capital punishment. Okay? So death by hanging is generally known to be the confirmatory death in less period of time and also less painful. So that is why India has taken this. Now please listen, there are around 488 prisoners who are on death row in India. What is the meaning of death row here? Which is the court which is the lowest court that can award a death penalty? District court or a sessions court. Whenever a district court is listening to a criminal matter, it becomes a sessions court. Okay, so the sessions court can give a what you call death sentence, can award a death sentence. Now, capital punishment in India is a legal penalty for some crimes under the country's main substantive penal legislation, that is IPC, as well as other laws. Executions are carried out by hanging. Currently there are 488 petitioners on death row in India. The most recent executions in India took place in 2020 when 2012 Delhi gang rape murder and perpetrators were executed at the Tihar jail in Delhi. This is a recent execution that the country had carried out. History of death penalty in the CRPC 1898, death was the default punishment, very important. Death was the default punishment for murder and required the concerned judges to give in their judgment if they wanted to give life imprisonment instead of death sentence. So if you were convicted or convicted of a murder, death sentence was confirmed to you. If the judge decides to give you life imprisonment, then he has to give a reasons in writing why he is not giving you a death sentence earlier. Now in 1973 the CRPC was amended. Further, life imprisonment became the norm and death penalty was to be imposed only in exceptional cases, or what we call rarest of the rare cases, and required special reasons to give death sentence. So earlier special reasons to give life imprisonment, 1973 special reasons to give death sentence have to be recorded by the judge whosoever is writing. The CRPC 1973 also bifurcated the criminal trial into two stages with separate hearings, one for conviction and another for sentencing. This was in news also. Couple of weeks before this also I explained this. What was this? Separate hearing for conviction and separate hearing for sentencing. Premlata, अरे लॉ ऑप्शनल है तेरा, हाँ यूपीएससी वाले गोल के पी जाएंगे तेरे को, ये आएगा 100% तेरे सवाल में मेंस में. हाँ, what is this separate hearing for sentencing and separate hearing for conviction? See what happens whenever, see, things in the court does not happen the way it is portrayed in the movies. It does not happen like that. For heaven's sake, वो क्या कहते हैं, which is that movie? पवन कल्याण लेटेस्ट मूवी लॉयर, वकील साहब देख के डोंट गेट इंस्पायर्ड. अगर वैसा नाटक कोर्ट में हुआ तो अगली बार ब्लैक कोट नहीं पहनने देगा जज, ठीक है. नथिंग लाइक दैट हैपन्स. Whenever a death row victim, an accused is, the case of an accused who is on a death row is being listened, the final conviction of the guilt is done in a separate hearing, means the court will assemble for only conviction. In that hearing, whether it is he is convicted or he is acquitted will be dealt. Once that is done, the court will, what you call, cease to function. Another date will be given where based on conviction this sentence hearing will happen. So this was primarily done with an intention, because the day the accused knows that I am now convicted for this particular crime and the best and the least I will get is a death sentence, the time period between conviction and sentencing he can utilize to gather more evidence to prove that he is not guilty. So that is the reason why it is always told that the conviction and the sentence hearing has to be separated. So in 1973 this also happened. But what is happening, why this was in news couple of weeks before, is the lower courts in the same hearing they are giving conviction also and sentencing also. The moment you give conviction and sentencing in the same hearing, you are not giving the time to the accused to prove that he is not guilty. So that is the reason why the court, the Supreme Court has time again and said that the conviction and the sentence have to be separated. There has to be a time lag between both the hearings. Okay? Now the process of death sentence after the completion of proceedings as prescribed by the Code of Criminal Procedure, the judge pronounces the judgment in a case under section 235. This section 235 is only related to pronouncement of the judgment. It is not related to the offence committed. The offence could be 376 rape and it could be 307, 302 murder or anything. But the pronouncement of the judgment comes under the section 235 of the CRPC Act. Right? So very important, 235 CRPC. Please make a note. 235 CRPC, pronouncement of the judgment. Now, once the trial court or the session courts awards its death sentence, the High Court is supposed to confirm that death sentence. after the decision and sentencing by the court of session, a high court needs to confirm it for the death sentence to be valid. So without confirmation of the high court, the execution of the death sentence can never happen. So the authority of awarding death sentence though is given to the sessions court, but the confirmation has to be done by the high court. And once the confirmation is done, after the death sentence is confirmed by the high court, an appeal by special leave petition SLP under article 136 may be filed. Please make a note, two articles related to death sentence, 136 and 137 are very important. 136 talks about your special leave petition appeal, high court ke against confirmation, against the confirmation by the high court, and appeal by SLP under 136 of the constitution may be filed. Then a petition seeking review of a judgment or order passed by the Supreme Court may be filed under the article 137 of the constitution before the Supreme Court within very important 30 days from the date of such judgment or order. The review petition within 30 days of the order. So first is what? The pronouncement of the death sentence, then came the confirmation, then came the SLP, then came the review petition. Now after that, curative petition. As per the Supreme Court judgment, very important, please make a note, Rupa Ashok Hurra versus Ashok Hurra and others. Please make a note, Rupa Ashok Hurra versus Ashok Hurra and others, 2002. After the dismissal of review petition, the Supreme Court may allow a curative petition to reconsider its judgment, or order if it is established that there was a violation of principles of natural justice or apprehensions of basis of bias, apprehension of bias on part of a judge. If these two things are there, the Supreme Court may allow a admission of a curative petition. So now the seniority is pronouncement of the judgment, confirmation by the High Court, special leave petition, review petition, then the curative petition, and last is the mercy petition. 72 is our president, 161 is our governor. See, mercy petition 72 and 161 of the constitution give power to the president of India and the governor to grant pardon and to suspend, remit or compute sentences in certain cases. Now after all these things are exhausted, now comes the time of issuing of a death warrant. Issuing of a death warrant, in some places black warrant se bhi it is famous. What happens? The second schedule of the Code of Criminal Procedure contains the form of the death warrant or black warrant. It is addressed to the Superintendent of Police, who is supposed to return the warrant to the court after certifying that the death sentence has been carried out. All these details have to be submitted by him by way of death warrant or a black warrant. The Superintendent of Police of that particular prison, will sign a black warrant or a death warrant certifying that so and so accused who was convicted of so and so crime and awarded death punishment has been hanged by death on this particular date at so and so time in the presence of so and so people. The signatures of the various witnesses is appended below. The certificate by the doctor that the accused was in good health is also endorsed along with this. Okay, so in the moot court hamare se ye sab, when I was doing my law, these things were practiced in the moot court. Okay, now what next? Next is about the constitutional validity of the death sentence. Very important. It says that the abolition of death sentence in India was examined by the, please make a note, 35th Law Commission, and it concluded that the death penalty should be retained. The Law Commission said that the death penalty should be retained, and Supreme Court also held that death penalty as constitutional. Death penalty as constitutional. See, not only our any judicial system is supposed to be reformative, but the only exception to that reformation is the pronouncement of death sentence. So that is why it was, what you call validated. And in also a landmark case, Rajendra Prasad versus state of UP and Bachchan Singh versus state of Punjab. This is very, very important, 1980. Please make a note. In the case law related to Bachchan Singh versus state of Punjab also, it was reiterated that the death penalty is constitutionally valid. And I spoke to you about the army also. I think it is here. Please make a note. Execution by shooting. Apart from hanging, the other method of execution allowed under the Indian law is death by shooting, which is provided for under the Army Act, Navy Act and also the Air Force Act. So in India, execution by shooting is also permitted, which is permitted under the Army Act, Navy Act and the Air Force Act. So with this, I think we come to the end of today's current affair topics. Anybody having any doubts, you can please ask, otherwise we can break off.